if you're asking me as an individual, I'd say terrifying. Now, I'm saying that as not only someone who uses it heavily at work, but someone who's like invested in the stock market and everything. So like, I think like everyone on earth, we're all like hitching our, ride to this wagon and seeing what happens. But it could easily go any number of directions. If you ask me like on a larger scope of things, mildly terrifying. But hey, right. So far none of that's happened. Knock on wood.
Peter, Franco, you've been in social casino since 2012. I wanted to ask, what are the most common wrong assumptions artists make when working in social casino?
Well, first of all, it's not been straight social casino. I've done a few stints in there, but yeah, I've been involved for sure since that time. I don't know, a lot of assumptions. I think some people think it's a cakewalk, or you can just come in and like phone it in as artistically. That's not how I like to operate. It's not like how I like to operate my teams. I take every project, whether it's a mobile game, a AAA, MMO, a social casino, as seriously as the next. And, everything needs to have a holistic vision, an artistic vision statement, something that you're trying to achieve visually or creatively, or make the user, the player feel. So I think those are the things that I really like to push on the games. And I think artists might mistakenly think that it's just disconnected and disjointed, when that's not what the way I envision game development.
So it's not just, drawing pictures for slot machines.
It's not just that. I mean, hey, that's part of the job. That's definitely a piece of it. But there's also the bigger picture. And it's just as important, if not more important, and should drive everything.
What originally drew you to social casino?
Good question. I mean, I just rolled off of these huge projects back in Xbox 360 days, like ZBrushing and normal maps was just becoming a thing. And the project team size was getting massive. So I just burned out. iPhone 1 came out. I tried to do some iPhone games with a friend of mine. And then social casino just kind of popped up out of nowhere, just started becoming this genre. And Zynga opened up an office here, and I joined up with Zynga. Originally, not even, I mean, kind of, it was a bingo game. They were also doing Cityville. And then slots just became this again, like a genre that hadn't really appeared before. It was really creative for an artist, especially for a 2D artist. It was like storybook. We could tell a whole picture, tell a whole story, a whole novel, I guess, worth of visuals. And it was not something I'd previously done, like a 2D game like that. So each game had its own challenge, and I did like a whole bunch of like cool games and cheesy games. I mean, we did like Duck Dynasty slots. Like everyone, it was just like, hey, how many different kinds of slots can we generate? And how quickly can we do it and, get to market quick? But yeah, a couple of those really stand out in my mind. Eventually, we've cut our teeth on enough product. We understood like what was the exciting mechanics behind slots, and we developed some real killer ones like Wizard of Oz slots. I was there when we started off the Willy Wonka slots, and then broke off to do Black Diamond Casino, where we really, at the time, that was innovative because we were bringing Unity, unleashing the power of Unity into the slots market, which hadn't really been done before because it was such a 2D genre. It was such a flash-based genre. Cocos was being used heavily. So at that time, using Unity just wasn't a thing. So trying to inject a little bit of 3D, some sophisticated like shaders and graphics. So that, what drew me and what kept me is just like always trying to push the envelope, even within like, any kind of constraint. There's always envelopes and walls to push against. And I think that's always interesting to me, no matter what the project.
You've had quite the career till date, like chief creative officer at Rising Tide Games. So, that was acquired by Zynga, a social casino company.
Mm-hmm.
You were senior creative director at Zynga. Then you were VP of art at Scopely. Also, they acquired GSN Casino. and now senior art director at SciPlay. How has the role of an art director changed in this category since you've started? What's really different?
I could tell you specifically at SciPlay, it's a lot more operationalized in the sense that when I started, it was uh, the Wild West. Everyone had to do everything. So you're making the slots games themselves, which is very exciting. And then you also have to make the meta, the wrapper, the kind of the core loop, the larger core loop, all those assets and designs and everything. And it was just one team doing all of that. So in a sense, it was great in that you can keep the game kind of self-contained, but in the other sense, it was hard to really push in any one of those areas. Like with a small team, it's hard to do all the slots, all of them incredible, but also have this incredible meta core loop that's well thought through and like really keeping up with the industry. So now at SciPlay, that's, like I said, more operationalized. It's divided. We have a team that focuses on the slots. Also because the market has kind of become smaller and like it's larger studios that are left, right? So big players, people that have connections to real money gaming slots like SciPlay. So, Light and Wonder has the real slot machines. We bring them into our game. So we're able to have a team just focused on that experience, make it as great as possible. And then we here at Austin, we're able to focus on the core loop, the meta, all these other things that drive day-to-day engagement, make people want to come in, spend coins, collect the currencies. Um, so and that's kind of how it's changed, I guess. The business has gotten both bigger and smaller, I guess.
You stayed as in the art side of slot machines or social casino, because we had in the previous podcast from SciPlay, Justin McFarlane, and he started on as a 3D artist working on social casino games and ended up being a GM of one of these titles. Have you ever flirted of going on the business side?
I think I've always been interested in the creative side of things. I've definitely dabbled plenty on the business side. So even right before I joined SciPlay, I was looking to start a company with some of my friends and ex-colleagues from Zynga, and we were talking with a lot of VC. I've been in the industry for quite a while, so I do have a lot of connections and contacts and folks that have just gone on to do different types of aspects of business development. So that's something that continues to interest me. Even in my role here, I feel like I have like one foot in the creative world, but also the other foot in all the KPIs and like understanding what's going to keep the lights on and like how do we really maximize that. And I think that's, by the way, that's what makes a good art director nowadays. You're talking about like how it's changed. It's not just about making art. Like you also have to deeply understand the business side of things. Otherwise, your art may not make sense. Like it may not fit in the game, and then you're going to get like endless feedback from everyone else who's trying to push the business forward. But if you yourself have a deep understanding of all of that, then you can just do it right the first time. But yeah, it's changed quite a bit, and it's also I haven't. It's like I said earlier, I haven't just been in social casino either. So I was able to move around in the industry, and I think like glean a lot of different skill sets or pieces of information that I could bring to like kind of back to social casino when I came back here. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to do with the game I'm on right now, Goldfish Casino. We're trying to refresh it. And I'm trying to bring all the things that I've kind of picked up along the way at Scopely when we were doing, anything from like word puzzle games to MMO to AAA, large brand IP titles, all that kind of stuff. We figured out how, like the hard way, how to really make all these titles like accessible, like to mass market. And that's what I'm trying to do here as well. SciPlay and Goldfish.
You mentioned understanding of the business side of the operations. I think that's hugely important. Through my careers, I do have to say, art director is the number one title of professionals that I've parted ways more often in studio head or GM positions, and the ones that I absolutely loved working with and would love always to work again is the ones who were interested in the business side, who were interested in the user acquisition, who were interested in all the aspects and wanted to learn, because they made a great collaborators. And then at the same time, if the art director was only focused on cultivating the art team and their artistic vision, that always ended up in them butting heads with everybody else because they were kind of driving in their own lane and almost creating this little fiefdom inside of a team.
Yeah, yeah. One quick point on that too is like back in 2012, let's say, if you wanted to redesign a character like we're doing on this project right now, it would have been just probably a small group making a new character, and it may or may not have resonated with the audience, but that is a big difference about today. Like understanding you saying the KPIs and the business side of things. When we did it this time around, we now have access to our users and all their data and stuff. So we did surveys with VIPs and users, and it was very marketing exercise, very much data driven. And then that would go into the loop with the artists, and we try to figure out how to like, hey, this is what our audience is saying they want. How can we interpret that and give them what they want? And after several rounds, we were able to figure out that they liked the current Goldie, but they wanted more emotional states. So we use that to influence how we created the new rig to make sure that we leverage that so it looks familiar, but we were giving them something new with it. So, but yeah, that's how you fuse all this, like the business sense with the art sense, and just that's how it's done now.
So talking about infusing a business sense with art sense, in your experience, what makes a good art in social casino?
I mean, great art is great art for sure. But ultimately, you have to interact with it. It has to be smooth, fluid. Transitions have to be seamless. The way screens come on and different features interact with each other. That to me is kind of this very small niche of art and game development. In fact, it's often kind of forgotten because it lives right between engineering and art and like technical art and all this. So it's something I love fighting for, the seamlessness and the fluidity of the larger game. And because no one else kind of will. I don't even know whose job it is to do that, I guess. It's somebody's got to do it. It's usually, I guess, the art director, but it could also be, and a lot of people, it could be the director of product, it could be director of engineering, but as long as someone's really fighting for that. Because I've seen, by the way, it sounds trivial, but you see some games where it's just choppy or chunky, or when you go between screens, there's like all these pops and jitters, and that stuff just drives me nuts. So that's not like a true art thing, like an artiste thing to go after, is an art role.
It's an experience. It's a visual experience. Huh. And talking about like your experiences with different styles, is there specific styles that would perform better with social casino audience?
Well, I can tell you like very specifically, one of the things that we're trying to do right now on this product is inject a new style, right? I think historically a lot of social casino has been highly illustrated, and it's still what works. And the slots themselves, they are an illustrated experience. But the game, the mobile game, the app, if you want to think of it that way, I think it's for a lot of slots games, that part hasn't been thought of as much. And that was something in my several previous jobs that we focused a lot on, kind of modernizing the UI. And so now we're trying to bring this flat 2.0 aesthetic, which had been trending for like 10 plus years. It was a reaction to the flat movement, whatever, the UI movement back in Windows 8, whatever, which is, just 100% flat, just graphic flat. And then the flat 2.0 came out and like, hey, we can have some shallow depth, still keep things flat. And we're applying that across the UI. It maximizes legibility, maximizes kind of surface area for information. It's what's been trending in mobile for a long time. So making sure that we bring some of those things. And I think the reason, in my mind, why this makes sense is because social casino like had a ton of great ideas starting back in 2012. And then you have other genres like just casual, hybrid casual. They've been slowly but surely looking at social casino, taking some of their best tips and tricks, like all the anticipation and the gotcha reveals and like the big red button mechanics, and molding it into their own genres. And so we've been losing slowly but surely market share to these genres. So I think making social casino styled now in reverse after that genre when we bring back, and hopefully people realize that those same core mechanics are just, here, and that probably were born here, they'll come back and it'll seem familiar and comfortable. So, in our user base, we have I think 60 to 70% of our users play Monopoly Go. So making our aesthetic kind of mirror some of those genres like Monopoly Go and like the other titles out there, the big titles. Again, when we get those users coming back, they'll be more likely to hang out, give it a shot. We got a wider funnel, and that's kind of the importance. And going back again for an artist and art director to understand the business of it helps a lot, and they can kind of give you maybe some clear thoughts and maybe on strategies and how to approach the art direction.
Is it so that the social casino players kind of treat the games similar way that real casino clients or slot clients would treat the machines? So basically, you pick your favorite machine and you work on it until it goes cold, and you go to the next one that is, you already know what the next one is, and the same type of a funnel you would have also on your phone, where there's the number 1 game, the number 2 game, and number 3 game. So once this goes cold, I'm going to go to the next one. Is that still the way players play? Web stores. You've seen what good looks like, but have you seen great? AppCharge is the direct-to-consumer platform backed by the likes of Supercell and built by monetization pros from Moonactive, Playtika, Huge Games, and others. People who know the difference. AppCharge powers over $500 million in transaction a year for top studios, optimizing every detail. Deeply personalized web store offers custom-made design, industry-leading monetization features, in-game payments, SDK, and more. 70% of top grossing games already have a web store, but the ones scaling fastest, they're doing it with AppCharge. Learn more at appcharge.com.
Yeah, for sure. It's how our game is modeled. We release new games weekly. We have in our game, which I don't know if it's that common, but we have like a favorites mechanic. So you can actually heart and favorite your favorite slots. So the ones that you think are hot or paying off the best for you. And then you can revisit those all the time. I have my subset. And then, yeah, I think players do play like that. And in fact, I have my least favorite, the ones that never paid me out, or, in my mind, I'm pretty sure these are like the unlucky ones, right?
The ones that
of course, that's not the case. There's no such thing as truly unlucky or lucky slots, but, it's how you feel.
Huh. Talking about creativity in social casino, how far can you push it? Like to my understanding, the player base is a little bit more conservative. Players are probably like middle-aged people.
It's not unique to social casinos. Like, where can you push creativity? You can have like the largest, most successful AAA company, and still, it may not make sense to push anything creatively. I've come up with like concepts myself and I presented to senior leadership, and they're like, "This is just too creative," which is a funny thing always to hear as a creative director. But it can also be true, So honestly, I think things need to be familiar. I think things need to feel comfortable. They can't be too crazy. And like I was saying earlier, I don't know, hopefully it didn't break up, but that's one of the things that we're trying to do here is create a UI that is familiar, so that, again, our player base coming which, 70 to 80% of them plays a lot of these kind of hybrid casual games out there. It does feel comfortable and familiar. But if you ask me personally, of course, I love being as creative as possible. But, those are usually, that's more when I'm doing more the indie kind of stuff, and then you're trying to get acquired. You can take those chances there, I guess, but less so, I think, in a larger company. You just have to kind of thread the needle. But even within that, again, like I said, the very top of the podcast is like within any kind of constraint, any box, there's walls to push against even there. So it's not like there's zero creativity. That'd be weird too. It's like, you have to, how creative can you be within these constraints? And there's a lot of room to do there. So
there's essentially pros and cons, because you have an existing audience. You are working against the wants and needs of that audience. And of course, if you're trying to create something new, then you're working to stand out in the market. And probably those are very different elements to chase.
Yeah. And people are just by default resistant to change. I mentioned we did a survey with new versions of our mascot, and they were like, well, we like our current one. We don't need it changed. But then we just released like a new splash screen with our newer mascot, and it frankly does look a little bit different just by necessity because it's rotated and these types of things. And our VIPs responded very positively to that. It was a refreshing change. So um, it's just almost human nature. You ask people in any kind of marketing survey, what do they want to change? It's hard for people to answer it. They don't know. No one knows what they don't know yet.
You talked about working with different IPs throughout your career, and I'm curious to understand, what is the role of those IPs in social casino? Like, what does an IP solve from both commercial and creative perspective?
I mean, commercially, I'm sure you've had plenty of people on your podcast talk about it. I mean, it gives you a leg up in the market. Right now, getting new users is really, really difficult with some of the new constraints on user acquisition that's out there. So it's not as easy as it used to be to find out players' information or where they came from, or you rely a lot more on organics and organic installs. So having IP helps solve that, like a lot of it, because people may already be seeking out the IP that you're sitting on, and then stumble upon your game. So from the marketing and user acquisition standpoint, it's key. From the new universe of user acquisition, it's also key. From creative standpoint, it fast tracks a lot of like the early concept and pre-production phase, because a lot of those things are solved. It doesn't delete it. Like there's still a lot. For example, Goldfish, that brand, the first Goldfish slot came out, I don't know, early 2000s, a long time ago. And the mobile game came out 2012, I can't remember, like 2014, something like that. And so that's an established IP, but even with that, there's still a lot of creative exploration to kind of go through, because you still have to forge and craft this universe. What are the rules of the illustration? What kind of like in right now, what we're doing is we're doing a lot of kind of painted reality that we're pushing the background, like fading it out, the values, to make sure that the UI and information is as legible as possible, because we have this older demographic you talked about. So a lot of things that we're trying to do right now, and it's not, by the way, just exclusively older demographic. I mean, we have a wide range of players, but we definitely, let's say, are maybe an older demographic than like Pokemon or some of these other games. So legibility is super key, right? So that's influencing how we create our paintings and our illustrations in the background, make sure the values are compressed. So we reserve the highest amount of contrast for the UI. So kind of went on a tangent there, but the IP, I think is hugely helpful. And I think it's now kind of, it's not required, but way more common than I think it used to be, just because of how competitive it is to get new players, stand out in a marketplace that's kind of contracting a little bit post-pandemic.
And how do you go around choosing the perfect IP that would fit the game that you're working on?
A lot of times, honestly, at least the companies I've worked on, we already had, like, it was just, I don't know, I want to call it sitting on the shelf. Like either someone had already had these IPs and people have been trying to create a game. I mean, here at SciPlay, we have a lot of IPs because Light & Wonder owns a ton of slot machines, and some of them are more successful than others. Some of them are the entire franchises. Like people go to this various slots, casinos to find at least a version of the game of that they like to play, like either Huff and Puff or games like that, and Goldfish itself has had several iterations of Goldfish. So people look out for these franchises. So with Light & Wonder sitting on a lot of those franchises, any one of those could make its own standalone IP game.
In the game of growth, everyone is looking for that power-up. Vibes is exactly that. It's built by industry people, so they actually get the challenges you're dealing with. As a result, they become the fastest growing gamified rewards platform out there. And the results are kinda nuts. With their AI-powered targeting, you're not just buying installs, you're bringing in the right players. And now they've got this new ROAS optimization engine, so your campaigns basically level up automatically. Vibes is built different. It's designed for growth. And I guess you could say it's powered by good vibes. Check out their DOF exclusive case studies by following the link in the description, and go to vybs.co. That's vybs.co. Share your email and join the waitlist list.
I'm curious to talk about like how the work has changed with AI. I think that's a big topic, but it seems to be a even bigger topic for artists, a taboo to some of them, definitely. I'm curious to hear how AI is being used inside art pipelines at SciPlay today.
Our game is predominantly a 2D game. We use, in art development, we'll still use a lot of 3D tools to create these 2D assets. So sometimes we'll use Blender to model out different environments or different angles or camera views. But ultimately, the assets, most of them come in they're two-dimensional. So we use AI, and AI happens to do a lot of 2D art. Now, what it doesn't do a great job of yet, but it's getting better every single month, is separating those 2D assets so that we could, let's say, animate them. Let's say if it's a character, you kind of want it puppeted or some like jointed, so you can easily articulate it. So the way that we're using it right now, though, is for early on. So in concept art, I think this is what most game developers are doing, because it does a great job of that, just ideation. It does a really good job if your expectations are very wide. If you want something very particular, it gets a little more challenging. But if you're exploring, it's great. So we do it for concept development. We use it. We also have a lot of, we train our own models here at SciPlay. So we're using for logo development, which you do a lot of. We have like certain sales or events or quests that are branded within the game, and we feed it our certain art style. So we'll get assets for that. We do it for individual asset creation. Actually, we use it for quite a bit. You can use it. It's getting really good now at what it used to, like 6 months ago, it used to be really hard to say, hey, just change the shirt I'm wearing. Make it I don't know, a red shirt, or give me some suspenders. It would probably change the entire image just inadvertently. But now you can do it and precisely change just the shirt, or just put suspenders on the shirt, and it'll look like everything's unchanged. So now we're using that same technology to create stages for nodes. Like, for example, in one of our quests, let's say you have to build up a farm, right? And the farm starts with just the plot of land, and then slowly, you put like the stakes in the ground, and then the plants come up, and the plants sprout, fruit or whatever. AI is great at that. So it'll do those stages, and it just saves a ton of time. So the artist can focus on either the initial line drawing, or take concepts that comes out of AI itself, kind of photo bash it the same way that you would use, and we still use like just the internet or Pinterest or whatever, just anywhere you can just kind of get ideas, and you take these, oh, cool, I like that background, I like this foreground element, I like this character, put it together, paint over it, and then feed that back into AI, get the states, like I was mentioning, of the farm. So it's a lot of back and forth. So it takes a certain amount of familiarity, and it's now where AI is finally getting to. But it's well, I feel like some of your next questions are gonna be like, is it what's a reaction to it or something, right? So it's the tough pill, right? I mean, it's like, it's creatively, it's really, invading and intruding in what artists enjoy doing, right? So artists, I'm myself being one of them, really like to be creative and solve all the creative problems and have it all authored by your own hand, so it does take a little letting go of that, and it's not great, but this is also a business, and we're here it's work, so we can be 100% creative outside of work. But here, anything that gives us a leg up and can help us move a little faster, these are things that we have to be looking at seriously. And so, yeah, is it, that's kind of how we're using it right now, I guess. And I went off on a little philosophical tangent there.
But that's what, I mean, I think it warrants a philosophical conversation, because artists are understandably anxious with these tools. As you said, it takes away some of the elements that they actually love making and that creativity part of it, where you're working on something and your creativity kind of gets sparked because it takes time, it takes trial, it takes some error, and it takes figuring out, and end result is something very interesting. So I'm curious of like how do you tell them to approach AI as a tool rather than this technology that is going to replace them?
What it kind of does, it allows artists to become, like everyone to become an art director or a little mini art director, because you now have what is essentially an army of artists in this AI box, right? So if you approach it that way, and you're kind of like, as an art director, you ask artists or your team, whatever, to create art, and not everything, it's like creating art's a very imperfect and random and chaotic process. So some artists or some art pieces might come back exactly how you envisioned it. Some maybe not, but different and better. And some maybe just miss the mark. And that's part of being an art director and like living with with that reality. It's the same thing with AI too. Like so you're going to ask AI, hey, I wasn't expecting that, or this is exactly what I want, or this just so. And it allows you to do that very quickly. So if you kind of put on your everyone puts on the art director hat. And by the way, that's probably where everything's going anyway. It's like more and more work is going to be able to be delegated to AI in a sense. And then it's going to be a lot of art, like leadership and management is generating it. So I think if you think of it, if you frame it that way, that helps a little bit. And then it helps you able to better use, I guess, the technology or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it's definitely a thing of concern. Like it's a real angst in the universe. Once you leave work and you think about AI and the realities, like what it might be doing to art and music, and it's not just that, like programming and society's ability to cognitively process things, because like people now are just relying more and more on ChatGPT to spit out their emails or their speeches or whatever. I don't know. The thing is, no one knows. We can all guess, but we really don't know where it's going to go. Are we going to run out of power sources first, or are we just going to run out of brain cells first? I don't know.
Even just considering like Google Maps or any map service, like before we had them, people actually need to think where they're driving and how they're getting there. And, and now if you don't have Google Maps open, you don't know where to drive, or it's like a mandatory thing. And
right.
If we wouldn't have Google Maps, I think we'd be all lost. I don't know if we'll be able to drive even to work.
Yeah, there's a reliance on that. And it's funny because even that lets you move faster, right? Like Waze, like in my case, I know how to get to work every day, but I need to know exactly, maybe I don't need to know this, but like, what time am I going to arrive? Or like, there might be an accident. I can do nothing about it, but Waze is going to tell me about it. So at least my brain, I can be more at peace, know I'm going to be late. So it's, I guess, similar with AI at the workplace. It allows us to get there faster. But yeah, are we going to be more self-reliant on it? Probably as well at some point, I would imagine, but I not only do I kind of don't think it's going to be 100% the case, I kind of don't want it to be the case either, because you still need to put your stamp on, like I said, the way we're using it, and maybe this is not the way it'll be used forever, but it's very much photo bashing. It's very rarely that you just ask AI to do something and it just comes out and you just put that in a game. In fact, it never happens. It's impossible. Maybe impossible is strong language, but it's largely impossible because things have to be prepped, chopped. It has to be ingested by a tech art Unity. It's not just a flat piece of art. That's just not how our game works, not how game development works. Things need to be sorted and optimized, for draw calls. There's a million kind of parameters that need to be thought through that AI is just not generating for you, let alone the composition and all that stuff. So you still need to be a good artist on multiple levels. Will that change in the future? Possibly, if we have enough computational power and we get the press button and make game button, maybe. But right now, it's just, you still need a good artist to stitch everything together, understand the composition, understand the color, understand how these things, you might get some nice elements, but it might not solve the creative problem that you're there to solve. So the artist gets in there, solves it for you. Then that needs to be handed off to the next person who's not AI, also needs to ingest and process that. Then the UI person who's not AI. They might have gotten ideas from AI. They might have gotten aspects of AI, but they still need to integrate everything with a human touch.
Yeah, I think you're referring to a thing called taste, which is very, very important. And the question there is like, how do you maintain that stylistic consistency across your game or games when AI can essentially generate endless variations instantly? And especially you mentioned like leadership can do it, but I can do a ton of stuff with AI and it is quite sloppy, especially if I start doing visual things. I can do a million thumbnails and they all going to look very different and it's going to be, just not consistent. It's not up to brand. So curious, how do you approach this? Because the output is so vastly increased.
Game devs. Here at Heroic Labs, we know that great gameplay is what players love, but integrating metagame features like challenges, progression, and rewards is crucial for retention and monetization. But coding them is a tedious and time-consuming process. That's why top studios have turned to Hero from Heroic Labs. Hero provides a complete suite of battle-tested metagame features that are quick to implement, letting you spend more time on the core gameplay experience. Ready to ship fully featured, engaging games? Check out Hero today at heroiclabs.com.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. And if you're not careful, it can get very imperfect, and we're not immune to that. And if you ask a lot of the artists, I think that's probably one of their largest complaints too, is like, hey, how do we wrangle this? How do we keep consistency? There's a few ways that we can do that. Like we use Layer AI right now, which is one of our tools. And it allows you to drop in images both as reference and style, or you can drop in lines, either drawn by the artist or just found images that really help constrain the style. So you can regulate style from like the line drawing phase. We also train models here, so which we've had a good and bad success with. I think we can push that even further, frankly, and I think that's the future too. Is like once you have enough critical mass, it's almost art directing the model, and then the model itself becomes the art director. Then you use that model to spit out future just imagery from AI. So those are a few ways that we can do it. And then ultimately, like I said, right now we rely still heavily on our human artists, right? Like, so those are the people who you're going to get something from AI usually, and it might be still way too like a lot. It does Pixar by default. Like if you ask it, it'll do super real, or if you try to stylize it, it's going to be Pixar. And we want is kind of a painted reality of sorts. So we'll take whatever we as close as we can get it there, but we'll still have to like kind of treat it and craft it and harmonize and marry these images and get the values to sit right. Insert certain elements. So it's a combination of all of those ways that we kind of art direct the AI.
Talking about AI and how important it is going forward and how it evolves, what do you think are the future skills that art directors will need to have with AI being more and more important element of your work?
You'll need to have experience using it. It's an interesting one because it is evolving so quickly. So we have bi-weekly calls with people training us on the latest AI, the newest models coming out, the newest functionality, because that's how quickly either new models have dropped or new functionality. So I really think you just need to not just like think like you learned AI or you've used it once or whatever. Like you need to constantly be keeping up with it. Because what you thought was impossible 4 months ago is like now common today. Like green screening, dropping out elements, like you can add audio to movies just with prompts. You can dictate first frame, last frame with movies that you create. So you can create your loops or like near loops and then take that into After Effects and smooth that out. There's just so much functionality that didn't exist, again, just a few months ago, which exists now. So yeah, I think every art director will need to be constantly up to date with everything that AI can do.
What's the best way for artists to be up to date with the evolution of AI?
That's a good question. So right now we're spoiled here. So we have, SciPlay treats us well, and we have people training us directly from the Layer AI side, which is a tool that we use, and they take that very seriously. So they fund their own people who are constantly keeping up with it. On the outside, I don't have great recommendations because I've been living here for a while. So I would just seek out, I'm sure like game dev organizations and groups, hopefully the serious ones, that they could, they're kind of doing that, and like they have like different AI. I know I've seen lots of AI sessions, which I haven't joined because, again, I didn't need it here, but they're happening all over town here in Austin, Texas, a big tech hub. So, yeah, don't have great advice there right now, but there's tons of it.
Yeah, you're taken care of, so others have to kind of figure out.
It's one area. Apologize. Yeah.
Join SciPlay, and you learn about
there
AI.
You go. Perfect.
Okay. What do you think your job will look like in 5 years?
It might be a core team of experts working with an art director, leveraging AI quite a bit. This is a really hard question because it depends if AI gets more fully involved on the Unity side of things, on the ingestion of assets. I think beyond 5 years, and it's easy to start talking about sci-fi kind of stuff, and you don't know what's going to be real. Is this Black Mirror? Is this going to be normalized?
So let's turn it around. What stays the same? What do you think won't change?
I think having good traditional art skills is going to be key, and maybe perhaps a differentiator between people who just spit out AI and hope for the best, or someone who can add something new to it. And then also people talk about AI just being a self-feeding cycle, right? Because it's trained on things that it's being trained on, and then it spits out things that it in return gets trained on again. So eventually there's going to be something orthogonal to that doesn't live in that core loop, the AI core loop. And that'll probably be generated by individuals, by indie studios, people just doing styles that AI just wouldn't, obviously generate, let's say. So yeah, I think extreme creativity, extreme traditional skills, I think will remain important. We might not have the army of artists that we needed to create games anymore. I think that'll change. So, and I think there might be the higher level side of things, and maybe more of a push to the business side, the product side, to marketing, because those people will have now the easier way to create creatives. So yeah, I think there'll be a push in that direction.
So I wanted to kind of end this. I have a bunch of questions, so I put them all together into rapid fire.
This podcast is brought to you by AppsFlyer. In today's digital world, understanding your app's journey from discovery to download is more than just insightful, it's essential. Enter AppsFlyer, the leader in mobile attribution and marketing analytics that allows you to measure the full potential of your marketing efforts, making every ad dollar work smarter. With AppsFlyer, that's your new reality. Dive deep into data-driven insights that reveal exactly where your users come from and how they'll interact with your app. AppsFlyer, where your app's potential meets performance.
Attention app and game developers. Are you ready to unlock the secrets behind the world's top performing apps and games? With Sensor Tower, you get the ultimate competitive edge, whether it's breaking into new markets, fine-tuning your UA strategies, or boosting monetization. Dive into data like never before. Track global trends across app stores. Analyze market-leading in-app purchase and in-app ad strategies, and benchmark your performance with real-time insight. The best part, Sensor Tower doesn't just deliver data, it helps you turn it into action. With intuitive tools and expert analysis, it's everything you need to make smarter, faster decisions. Thousands of app and game studios, from indie creators to global giants, trust Sensor Tower to help them win. So why not you? Start your free trial today at sensortower.com. That is sensortower.com.
So let's start with the first one. What's your favorite slot theme of all time?
Well, I have a soft spot for, I mentioned earlier in the podcast, Wizard of Oz slots. It was one of my, first of all, it's a great brand and IP, just so full of Technicolor. And then it has like that journey from like the sepia tone to Technicolor. So it has all that, it has so many different creative elements, characters, aspects. So when we worked in that game, I loved it. It's one of my favorite games that I've worked on in slot space. And I've seen great like land-based slots based on it. The mobile one we did, I think, still stands, apart just creatively how we did it, even though it's very dated now at this point. So yeah, that's probably my favorite.
Who's the one artist that has influenced your visual taste the most?
Interesting. Like my personal, well, I could tell you like there's so many good artists. I mean, I think Sir Alma Tedema and Sargent and some of these painters from the early turn of the century, they were phenomenal in what they were able to do with just bright colors and simple strokes. So that definitely influenced me as an individual, as an oil painter, which is my previous life. I used to do oil paintings a lot. But yeah, there's so many great artists. But those are just a couple that just jump out. Just love their stuff.
Nice. All right. So if you could redesign any non-casino game's art direction, which one would you choose?
That's a tough one. Maybe this might be an easy one to pick. I don't know. But maybe the New York Times, their game page, just because I feel like there's a lot that could be done there. I mean, it's pretty easy and, it makes sense. There's also a lot. It'd be a fun project to kind of think about how to even further gamify that. And they're leaning more and more into games like New York Times with all their spelling bee and like crosswords and stuff. So I could see a world where they're going to keep pushing that too. So that'll be my answer.
Oh, you clearly like everything with a lot of constraints, and then you can just go in and then figure that out.
Right.
Okay. What's the most underrated skill for a game artist?
I think it's really a great skill to understand the entire pipeline. So very rarely do you see like phenomenal 2D artists that know how to like do animation and then maybe even have done, I mean, it takes time and you have to be in it for a while. Though, I mean, kids coming out of school now, they make their own games, as part of their graduating project. So, but yeah, I think the more you can understand the entire pipeline, the better off you're going to be and the faster you can move through the industry, I think.
What's the first thing you look for in an art portfolio?
This is maybe a little counter to my previous comment, but it depends. We still look for specialists, in every kind of game development. So we're looking for animators, technical artists, 2D concept artists, visual effects. So for each of those, you're looking for proof of like specialization or like craftsmanship in those areas. You do want to, even though I think there's a lot of value in understanding the entire pipeline, you want to choose your focus and really have a lot of examples that showcase that. So the downside with knowing the entire pipeline is it's hard to stand out, hard to have a good portfolio, because how do you show that, hey, I'm good at everything? So specializing, focusing, that's a key part of portfolio.
AI, is it more exciting or more terrifying? I know we had this philosophical conversation, but where would you put it?
This is tough. If you're asking me as an individual, I'd say terrifying. Now, I'm saying that as not only someone who uses it heavily at work, but someone who's like invested in the stock market and everything. So like, I think like everyone on earth,
Yeah.
we're all like hitching our, ride to this wagon and seeing what happens. But it could easily go any number of directions, and now I'm not just talking about video gaming. Now I'm talking about like the future of military use of AI and like, encryption for our personal savings accounts. Like there's so many different things that could
Extinction
be
event,
extinction
not
level
totally
events.
zero.
If you ask me, like on a larger scope of things, mildly
Yeah.
terrifying.
Yeah.
But hey, right, so far none of that's happened. Knock on wood. Uh-oh.
Okay, on to the next one. So, what visual trend in mobile games need to go away?
Visual trend needs to go away. That's a good question.
I'd be happy if anything regarding those fake ads would go away. I don't know if that's a visual trend.
But I think those are going away though. So, I mean,
we've been talking about it for years.
Well, yeah, but no, one new trend I guess I'm seeing is the marketing will create, let's say, a fake ad, and like because they can get, going back to the artist market data, they can find out which of these fake ads works the best, and then it's then they create the game. I mean, it's not as fast as that, but then I've seen games created retroactively based on that mechanic, or like was it Royal Match? I think they their ads with the Save the King, those things were working so well that they brought that slowly but surely, folded that into the game itself. Or those ads you see all the time with like you're shooting, you're choosing which alley, which lane to shoot in and stuff like that.
Yes, Top War and all this kind of.
What is it called? Top Z or like
they all use the same.
I forget what it. Yeah, they all have the same thing. And now those games are developed now too. So that is now. Should that trend go away? I mean, it's a reversal of the creativity of game developers. So. Okay, here's one thing I would love to see go away. I don't think it's ever going away though, sadly. It's the ability to tell a story. So because mobile gaming now is so business oriented, right? Like the last thing you want is the game to end, let alone so it's really difficult to have an arc, a creative moment, like where there's like as a player, like you're faced with like this game-changing decision. You have to, and then it comes to a conclusion. It's satisfying. It's like, oh, I did it. I solved this one. I put it away. I would love for that to kind of make its presence known again. I just don't see how that would happen, just because it's sheer amount. Maybe with AI, interestingly, maybe AI makes game developments like chapter and episodic development so easy and quick that we could maybe get back to that in a weird way. It might save. But right now we can't. So it's just it's a treadmill. It's content treadmill right now by necessity, because it's a business. You have to keep it running, and you can't. So narrative suffers, story suffers.
Yeah.
So I'd love for that to kind of end and come back.
Yeah, it's still in paid games and still in console games, and I think it's coming back even more because they kind of didn't make the transition to free to play or games as a service. So I think they're doubling down on that. Two more. Second to last, one piece of career advice you wish someone gave you at the start.
Well, I don't know how critical this is, but like now where I'm at is, I did not have a good sense of business. And this probably could have helped me earlier on. Now, what as a result, what I did is I just focused on my art skills, and I think that it served me well and serves any artist well that wants to get into this industry. So really honing, and it's impossible to do everything, right? But I do wish art schools did force a track on that, or like had a little bit more of a bias, or like you just kind of tell, artists how to run a business, how to seek venture capital. Like let's say they want to go out on their own. What does it mean? Like even negotiating your own contract at a studio, like basic things like that, where it's like very commonplace for people in product because they're all coming out of MBAs from various like Ivy League schools and all that stuff. So not only do they learn that at school, but their peer groups, it's just part of that that the department, but in other departments even, but in the creative side, not so much. So you kind of come out into the world a little doughy-eyed and not knowing, what, if people are taking advantage of you, or even how to take advantage of opportunities that come your way. Like you just might not even recognize it or know what it is. So yeah.
Yeah, and you're coming from an environment where everybody's an artist and nobody has that business sense, so it feels normal. And then you get into the real world, and then there's it's full of these sharks that will take an advantage of you because you don't understand the game that they're playing.
Yep. Totally.
All right. Well, final question: if you could give one piece of advice to an artist who wants to grow into an art director in the era of AI in social casino, what would that be?
I think managing people is key part of things. I think being I think to go up the art management ladder, you have to be really good at one aspect of art. So a lot of times it's concept art. It's like classic traditional art. Not all the time though. Sometimes people come in through like animation, track,
visual development.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to do it. But more often than not, at least maybe in like in the social casino, because it's such a 2D kind of world, a lot of it is 2D artists and concept artists. But whatever it is, become a rock star in that one area. I think that's step one. So really, really show that you can do that one piece. And then the next step, there's multiple steps. The next step after that is then you do ultimately need to know like the whole development, right? So you need to break out of that little area and understand deeply the entire process of game development, or you'll be kind of just confused the entire time. And then there's like so much on top of that too. Then you need to know really how to manage people, and like there's all these managerial like training classes and like tricks. Like Ohio, only handle it once, or like the 4 quadrants. Where do you move your critical and time sensitive problems versus critical and non-time sensitive, and like just all these like tips and tricks of self-management and managing others. Gotta understand that to some degree. And then the last piece, of course, is the KPI and the business side that we talked about is now like required almost. Like you probably, anyone who did everything else I'm mentioning probably has been around enough in the industry that it's going to rub off a little bit, like all the business side of things. But you have to be able to have that conversation, like a KPI oriented conversation with someone else, or that your creative ideas will just immediately be squashed or just trampled on because you can't defend it in a meaningful way,
And then comes the AI. And now you have to be also a prompt master / LLM master / understanding all these tools.
Yeah.
And basically what you're saying is the advice is continue evolving. Outside of your core, outside of the art. That's how you become an art director.
Yeah. Well, step one is become really good at one piece of one aspect of art, but then it doesn't end there. It's not like just because you're
then understand art production pipeline, then understand the business, and then understand the technology, and that's pretty much it. And now you're good to go. Business, technology,
there's so
art,
much
production.
There's so much with anything. You know how it is. It's like
it takes you 15 years, but you'll be there.
Yeah. Sometimes some people just rise right up. It's just, who knows? Timing. And that's the other piece too, timing and, but, and it's easier to get into that. I think smaller studios, if you're going to get into that, as an art director, art manager, start rising up, it's easier that way. And then you can like lateral into maybe larger studios that, but to try to like rise up with all the friction against you, all the headwinds at a single large studio is probably harder, will take you longer. So that's another piece of advice I would recommend and it's also at smaller studio, you'll get more exposure to all the aspects of game development anyway. So
Peter, thank you so much for all the advice.
Yes.
It's truly interesting conversation. People overlook social casino a lot, despite the revenues, despite the player base. And it was really nice to have an art director to kind of shine the light on this part of the business where there's so many constraints, and yet that's where the creativity really shines when you have those constraints. So super interesting to hear your perspective, and thank you for being so open about AI. I know it's a tough conversation for somewhat reason, especially artists, but it's very necessary conversation. And I think what SciPlay is doing is amazing by helping you guys to understand better the technology and take advantage of that technology rather than what would happen the other way around, where the technology is taking advantage of you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you should look, any company joining, you should look for that, people who are looking to utilize it, but ethically and in a way it grows the employees and the artists and the people on the team, not just undermines. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, empowers them to do more.
Absolutely.
More efficiently. All right. Well, that's our pro AI speech.
That's
after the existential event possibilities.
Yeah. That's right. Everyone fast forward to that part first and then listen to the rest of it. Yeah.
Or it ends like a Terminator. But you know what? Till then, that's fine.
Who knows?
Who knows? On that note, thank you everybody for listening, and reach out to Peter. There's a link in description. Also, link in the description on Evolving a Goldie. That's actually a case study for how SciPlay modernized the 2D character animation with custom Unity tools. So that's your kind of a deep dive in the project that you're currently focusing on. So, anyways, thank you, Peter, and thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Mishka. Great talking with you.
You did it. You made it to the end of the episode. As a fan of the show, it would help us out if you'd subscribe and leave us a review on the podcast service of your choice. Those stars and likes, while a small action on your part, mean a lot to us and help to grow the show. More importantly, are you a member of the Deconstructor of Fun Slack group? If you have 5 years or more of games industry experience, go to deconstructoroffun.com/Slack and apply to join. Join the games industry best professional community filled with peers always willing to lend a hand, or subscribe to our newsletter to get all the latest insights from the Deconstructor of Fun content creators. Thanks for listening.